Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Left Exclusive, the podcast produced by PaperStreet Web Design and Marketing. In this month's episode, we're actually going to be making the second part of an episode we did last month. Last month, we did 10 technical mistakes that you should avoid with your website. With that in mind, we're now moving forward. You fixed the bugs on your site, it's functioning, it's great. Let's take a look at design. So this episode is going to be top 15 website design mistakes to avoid. Today, I'm joined by Alyssa, our creative director. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Nancy. Thanks for having me.
And once again, I'm joined by Pete, our CEO and general guru and founder of PaperStreet.
Howdy.
All right, with that, let's dive right in. Perhaps this number one is going to be the most important one that we talk about, and that is more of an overall feel. And Alyssa, you're going to take this one, but let's talk about what happens when your website and marketing lack a discernible brand.
Yes. So branding is that overall impression that you want people to receive when they look at your firm name, when they look at your website, your marketing material. That should all encompass, who you are as a company, who you are as a firm, and how you want people to feel. So if your logo and your website branding and your marketing material don't match, it gives that impression to your potential clients or your existing clients that your firm is disjointed, that your message isn't unified. And so that doesn't really build trust or credibility with your potential clients. So you have to kind of figure out if you're more of a modern approach, a traditional approach, and everything should have that same look and feel. And again, you don't want people to think that your website or your marketing was just thrown together. It should be thoughtful because that is a reflection of the quality of your service, that it's thorough and thoughtful and well executed, that you have the knowledge. So even just every little piece of your branding speaks to that impression that your potential user is going to receive when they look at it.
And it's interesting because one of the taglines of PaperStreet is impress and get results. And that is part of the branding mantra. It should be that whatever website theme you create, whether it's creative, whether it's traditional, it should just leave the reviewer feeling impressed. Like, that person has legal knowledge, they can help. This person understands my case, they can help. So when you create that the impression of being sound, of strong, it's going to make them feel more secure. And you can do that with any design element you choose, right, Alyssa?
Well, absolutely. And I think especially if you're in the legal field, there is a lot of trust that needs to be built. And there's a lot of credibility that needs to be earned and discerned from your potential clients. So that is really a top priority, I believe, for any law firm, for our clients. I think it's incredibly important to make sure that everything is just chosen wisely and, again, unified for whatever your message may be or whatever impression that you want to make. And that's the power of design and branding. It can do that.
All right, now that's okay. Step one, you have a brand, you want to go, you know what you need to convey, you know how it's going to look. But then the next biggest thing with your website is going to be user experience. And one of the worst things that you can do with your website design and a poor user experience is having a difficult or cluttered navigation. Pete, can you assist with this?
Definitely. I abhor clutter in all my life, from closets to my house to everything like that. I'm a kind of a neat freak. So I hate cluttered websites. When a user hits your site and they find it cluttered, they're going to bounce from your website if you don't make it easy for them to figure out where they want to go. It all starts with a site architecture. Figure out a site architecture. Start with your homepage, start with your About Us pages, your bio pages, practice area pages, maybe a blog, news, or resources, and a contact page. That's a pretty simple site structure from there. And then you want to pyramid it out. You want to have 2 clicks to everywhere. You want to have clear hierarchy. So if you have a practice area of intellectual property, you then want to have sub-practice areas of trademarks, patents, copyrights, and so forth. You want to make sure that your menu at the top, basically, I recommend having 5 or so buttons. Keep it simple. Keep it the information you want the user to get to, which is obviously your contact page most of the time. And then you can also consider having a mobile menu to where you just have the 3 little hamburger lines on the top right and have it that way too. It also makes the site just look better. So keep it simple. That's the best way to have people get to your website and get to where you want them to go.
And then something that people try to do with their navigation is something that we're going to talk about for number 3. Sometimes they feel that if you use a pop-up, it will help with assist with your navigation. But that's not really always the case. Melissa, can you elaborate?
Yes, definitely. So I've been working at PaperStreet for over, I think it's 15 years now. I think it's 15 years this year, actually. And so there's always, these trends of requests that come through, and pop-ups has been one of those. There was a period of time where everybody wanted pop-ups. And so I think pop-ups can be effective, but they do need to be used correctly and at the right time. Because if you have pop-ups that come up too quickly, you're going to sort of like turn off your user because they're trying to get somewhere or they're trying to read something. All of a sudden, something just blocks their view. A pop-up blocks their view. They might get annoyed and bounce off your site. And so you have the, opposite effect that you wanted to have. The pop-ups also can't block the entire screen because, again, then they get a little disoriented. They're not sure what page they're on or where they were. And so there needs to be some space around that pop-up so that, again, they know where they're at. They're not disoriented on the site. There needs to be a clear close buttons because if it's not a call to action that they're interested in that moment, they need an easy way to click off of it and make it disappear. I think there's, a good rule of thumb if you can maybe have that pop-up appear once the user has had a chance to be on the site for maybe at least 10 seconds. They've had a chance to scroll down. They understand what page they're on, the information on that page. They've already made their first impression. And so maybe a little bit of that trust has already been built up. And so therefore a pop-up that can provide value or a benefit or something that is of interest to them, you're going to see a larger percentage of conversion at that point. Because you do want to make sure that you're offering something valuable to them that's worth them taking the time, clicking on it, and proceeding through whatever actions you're asking for, if it's a sign up or an email, whatever it might be. So I think pop-ups can be effective if they're done the right way.
They should also have design in mind as well, because I know I'm guilty. If a pop-up comes on, a lot of times I just instantly click it off because I assume it's an ad or something that's not what I'm going to be bothered with. So if you have something that it looks branded, it looks neat, and it looks like it's actually something important with text that jumps out or something like that, that's a more effective way to use the pop-up. Because like I said, if a person is like me, who admittedly just quickly exits out, even if it might be something helpful, the people like me need to have that ability to just quickly see, oh wait, I may actually care. Maybe it's a webinar I want to join, or maybe it's a newsletter I think would be helpful. So the
Right.
design would come into effect as well.
And on that note, you want to make sure that the clickable button is big enough to where you can click. There's definitely some design trends to where the button gets smaller and smaller. It's really hard to actually click it, especially on mobile. So
That's true.
And if you're
Yeah,
using a
pop-ups are
finger
really
too.
not great on mobile. So that's the other thing to
Yeah.
think about. Where is it going? What's the size? It just has to be artfully done. And it really does piggyback on our first 2 points about not having clutter, right? You just need a very clear call to action, a clear message. Like Pete said, a very clear button that's easy to press. And then also goes back to Nancy, what you just said about the branding. I mean, everything has to be consistent and thorough throughout, including the pop-up.
yeah, one last point on that is also the length of time. If your pop-up's up there for more than a month, make it part of your page. If it's that important and if you want to have it up there for a while, I've seen sites that have popped up for over a year and you're like, all right, well, just put it on your page. Like, it doesn't need to be there that long. So incorporate it into your actual design.
And don't forget about your pop-ups too. I can't tell you how many sites I've had that still have like, we're still open despite COVID-19.
Yeah.
Or, they'll have, something like,
Right.
oh, now office open in Mobile, Alabama, but your office has been open for like a year and a half now. So just
That's a great
remember
point.
that you have these pop-ups as well.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving on, once again, it's kind of a nice flow, is we're going to talk about your site not making a positive impact. I mean, if your pop-ups are constantly going, your user's going to get annoyed, they're going to X out. That's not a positive impact. Positive impact is overall something that ties into your brand. Did you have a positive impression when someone left your site? Did something stand out in a good way about your site? Did you use a comfortable feel or a motivated feel to your website? It's something that a lot of times our law firms, they pick an imagery. They pick, I want the city of Manhattan to be my background. Okay, that's fine. It creates a sense of power and things like that. But are you a family law firm that power may intimidate? Or are you a corporate law firm that you want that power? You have to think about how someone is going to feel looking at your website. Is your website cold and standoffish? Does that mean that you're going to be cold and standoffish with your site? Is your website powerful and suggesting, modern and sleek? Well, if you're doing mergers and acquisitions, that's definitely the impression that you're going to want to make. So you need to take the emotional context of what your website is conveying. And a lot of times our clients don't think about that. As long as it looks good, oh, it's traditional, it's fine. But no, because if everybody has the traditional fine website, what's going to stand out next? You need something on your website that's going to connect and create that positive impact. Now, that positive impact is going to vary by law firm. If you're corporate, you want to say you're winning and experienced. If your family law or criminal law, show you care. If you're personal injury or criminal, maybe you want to show you win. It just has to be some sort of feeling, and it could be a positive feeling as opposed to pop-up annoyance or ugly website or slow website or something like that. So do whatever it takes to have a positive impact with your site so that it evokes the proper emotion.
Those are all excellent points, right? Always thinking about what does my audience want to see, right? What makes them feel comfortable? What makes them want to trust us? Those are all really excellent points to consider when you're wanting to make a positive impact. And also, I think just being memorable, right? I mean, also it depends what kind of law you practice, but if you're in the business where you need conversions and leads from your website, if your website is not memorable, if it's very forgettable and bland, then I think that's almost just as bad as having, a negative impact, because no impact is just, they're going to forget you. There's something else that's more catchy or more memorable for them. So I always think of just having one element that might be catchy and stick in your user's mind. Maybe it's the photo, maybe it's a message, maybe it's a color, or just a little piece of animation that they go, wow, that's cool. There's so many different ways to achieve that. But I think at least having one thing memorable is really important.
I think I see the no impact of what you're saying, Alyssa, a lot with our clients who pride themselves on being a word of mouth law firm. A lot of times our law firms come to us saying, oh, we've been in this town forever, everyone hires us and things like that. So they just kind of choose this bland website because they say, oh, it's going to serve a purpose because everybody knows us. But the problem is you may not be the only word of mouth law firm in 6 months or a year or 2 years. And if you go with this no impact, no one's going to care word of mouth, it's just not going to resonate with someone who has contributed to that positive impact. So it's just what you said, Alyssa, that no vibe, that no feeling is going to just kind of detract from your word of mouth reputation. So you're going to lose out to someone who also is a word of mouth reference, or quite simply just has a better website and marketing. So no impact is also just as terrible as a negative impact when it comes to this sort of thing. All right, so let's say we're moving along in this process. You've designed your website, you have a brand, you think it's pretty easy to use. All right, you're making a good impression. How does someone contact your firm? Do you have a call to action? What is that, Pete, and why do our websites need them?
Yeah, another big mistake is not having a call to action for every page. Every page of your site needs a goal. When the person hits your practice area page, most likely your goal is to get them to call you, or maybe you want a contact form, depends on the firm. Maybe you want them to get a digital download to where it's a more of a long drawn out process to sign up a client, where you want to inform them a lot of information first. Maybe you just want to get an email subscription going. Or maybe you just want them to dig deeper onto your site. Those are kind of the big 5, call to actions that we recommend, is either a phone call, contact form, digital download, some type of sign up subscription, or getting them into other pages of the site, which is your funnel, to where maybe your funnel is a multi-step process to where they learn a little bit about your firm, the practice area, dig deeper into their very specific niche area and issue, and then contact you. So that's the goal. Every page needs a goal though. So we recommend having a contact, button somewhere in the top header. You can have a sticky header where it always is locked into place at the top. I recommend having, a contact form on the sidebar. If your site has sidebars, if it doesn't have sidebar menus, then have it in the middle of the content every few paragraphs. And then of course, at the end of every page, have a call to action. And again, your call to action may vary. A lot of firms these days want phone calls. And so that's kind of the route we go. A lot of firms, though, they want contact forms. That could be overnight. It could be a chat too. So that could be another one too. So, but every page needs a goal.
Those are great points. It might seem obvious where you think the user needs to go next, or it might seem obvious that they should call you. But I always use this example with our clients, which is it'd be like telling a friend that you're having a party, but then not inviting them. It's like you actually have to prompt them to take the action, or they may not know. So I think it is important to be obvious and even redundant at times to have a user take that action.
It also goes to the fact that we always talk about how our clients are multitasking, or a lot of times they could be double screening or something like that. So when you have the contact or the call to action visible and effectively, somebody who's moving quickly, yeah, I want to hire this firm, I know I want to go, hit that contact form right then and there, or hit the call button. It helps with that sense of immediacy, because the longer you make someone dwell for improper reasons, if they're still on your page and they're reading or they're watching a video, great. But if they're dwelling on your site because they don't know where to go next or something like that, you're going to lose them. So having that call to action, that visible action easily, whether click to email, fill out a form, or call, you help make that decision continue in a straightforward line. Yes, I see them. Yes, I want to hire them. I can call them right now. So we've done all of that. So we're getting this set it. You have a website. It's navigated. You don't have those annoying pop-ups. You have a call to action. Everything looks great. But have 4 years passed? Have 6 years passed? Have 10 years passed? Have even longer passed? Here at PaperStreet, I work as client relations, so I see our clients all day, every day, and I have clients who've been with us for 20 years. Fantastic, we love that. Have you not updated your site in 20 years? What about 10 years? What about even 5? The problem is that even the world's best website design could at some point look dated. It's kind of like if you pay for a Versace handbag. You love your Versace handbag, but in 5 years, maybe no one likes the color pink anymore. No one likes fur on your handbags anymore. The same thing is true of your website. Maybe you had a dated graphic on your site that no one uses anymore. Maybe you went for a big, bold yellow color and now it's considered offensive. From an aesthetics point of view, there's trends. Things are going to come and go. So your website could look outdated. But what a lot of people also don't think about is the technology behind your site. Maybe now there's a language toggle so you could connect to a different group of population. Maybe now there's better software for ADA compliance. Maybe now your site is just simply too slow. So for a million reasons, you can't just set up this really great website and expect it to last forever, because quite frankly, nothing does. You have to update your car every so often. You're going to have to upgrade, your washer and dryer. It's just like that with your website. It can be great and it can be functional for a really long time, but things just become outdated. They may not work. And also, what everyone seems to forget is there's going to be other law firms. And the world constantly says how the world has too many lawyers and things like that. So if you have a one and done website, might be great, but 3 years from now, some big competitor may move in next to you or in your town or in your city, and they may have a really fantastic website. Maybe they have newsletters, maybe they have an interactive function, maybe they have videos. So simply creating your website and then forgetting about it makes you lose your competitive edge as well. So there are just so many reasons why too many law firms come to me and say, oh, I haven't visited our website in years. That's not going to be good. It's just, there's probably going to be something wrong with it, whether it's not trendy enough, not functional enough, or just simply not competitive.
I was enjoying your car analogy. I think that's actually a really good one because, when you have a car, and you can have a great car for many years. I remember I had one of my first cars for almost 10 years and I took really good care of it, right? You have to get your oil changes, tires rotated. Every so often you have to do a deeper service appointment. So I think, like you said, everything does need updating at the very least, just for functioning properly and for speed. But then, as you mentioned, also competitive edge is really important. So I'm just enjoying your analogy. I think it's a really good one. I think people can relate to that.
And then you can transition with this as well, too, because the next mistake that we're addressing is a lot of times, again, people forget about their site, they forget about their brand, but also your website's not necessarily about you. Yes, it's your marketing tool. Yes, it's going to be what shows your experience. But what's most important is your website is designed so you get clients. So Melissa, you're going to talk about how can you make your website centered around your client?
Absolutely. I think that has been a mistake for a while, that law firms feel that they have to mainly talk about their accolades, their experience, their knowledge, and those are all really important aspects of who they are and also building trust with your potential clients. But there's definitely been a positive movement towards being more client-centric, meaning as a firm, yes, it's important to talk about your credibility and your accolades and your experience and your verdicts and your settlements. Those are all wonderful things, but it really has to be directed at what can you do for your user? What can you do for your client? That's what people ultimately care about. They want to know, what can you do for them? How can you help them win? They're concerned about fulfilling their goals, their needs. And if your website or your marketing just fails to address that and center around that, then it's possible that you lose clients over that, or potential clients over that, because someone else will target them with messaging and with branding that says, here's what we can do for you. You know, we care about you, or we understand you. We've been there. You know, a lot of firms also speak about their personal experience. You know, maybe they got into personal injury, for example, because they experienced a horrible accident when they were younger. You know, we have clients who actually have those really moving, touching personal stories that a potential user can really connect with. So I do think it's important to take a step back from your marketing and your website and ask yourself if you're actually speaking to the user in a way that you're connecting with them on an emotional level. And are you addressing what they're looking for? Are you actually directly answering the questions that they have and the needs that they're going to have in the scenario that they're going to bring to you? So I just think that that's, you know, a big mistake. That's not a huge priority and focus for your website.
This is actually touching upon content, but when you make your design, your website design, you should consider content in mind, because the problem is, as Alyssa said, you know, connecting with personal injury clients, family law clients, that's important. So you need to have enough something on your site to connect. But what I see a lot in my role at PaperStreet is I talk to our fancier firms, you know, the corporate law firms, commercial litigation firms, things like that. And they forget about connecting with their clients because they're like, oh, we're just going to show them that we win and that's it. But the problem is that not all people who make the hiring decisions at these big corporates and general counsels and things like that completely understand the legal claims that they're facing. So if you don't break down how or why a general counsel should hire your firm to do the actual legal work, you should explain it. What are you going to do in a commercial litigation claim? What does commercial litigation look like? You know, should they have certain expert witnesses? You know, what should they entail? Or simply, do you handle a merger or acquisition? Just having these big, overly broad websites, even if you assume everyone's going to know you, it's not necessarily going to explain that, yes, you handle those particular claims. So even if you're looking to target major corporations or something like that, you still need to have that appeal to connect to them and have them hire you because they understand your site. So again, your website needs to cater to someone who may not fully grasp the legal claim that they have. All right, moving forward, and this is something that, you know, again, I see a lot in what I do for PaperStreet, and I'm sure, Alyssa, you see this when clients come your way when they're looking at a redesign, is that a lot of times people just operate on a cheap budget. You know, whether it's a solo practitioner who just simply lacks the funds, or, you know, whether it's a big firm that says, I don't need to spend a lot on my site. I've got a great reputation. I'm award winning, things like that. Unfortunately, a lot of times you get what you pay for in the world of marketing and website design. You know, I can't tell you how many times people are hesitant. And again, this is slightly off topic, but the same point, that they've hired someone cheap to do their social media. And all they're doing is Taco Tuesday posts or, you know, Happy New Year. And then there's no substance to the posts. Or we hire someone who's an SEO person that they said, oh, I went with a cheap SEO person. And all they did was that. Like, well, because that's what you paid for. And the same thing is true of your website design. Never, ever, ever hire a website company based on one website that you like and it happens to be cheap. Because guess what? That may be all the person is capable of. That may be the extent. So your website's going to look exactly like that website design. Or worse yet, maybe they're great at the aesthetic, but have no technical knowledge whatsoever. So your website's going to break. Your contact forms aren't going to work. So many times we see clients that come to us because their previous designer, for example, used a theme builder that makes it impossible to add content or make it user friendly or even just simply update. So again, yes, absolutely, you have to stick to your budget. You can't blow your entire spending, for 3 years on your website. That's never going to work. But pick a package level that even if it's a step down where you can trust the company, you can know that it's not going to die on you, that they're going to provide constant support to you. So, like I said, in a lot of things, you're going to get what you're paid for. So, a lot of times you just have to say, well, maybe I can't do this website design this year because I want it to be done right and I want it to look great. So put it off for a year if you have to, and maybe have a landing page. There's ways that your marketing company or your marketing team can come up with for you to stay on budget until you have the time to do that new website. Just don't go cheap initially. It will never end well. And it has never ended well. And that's a lot of times the clients that come to us, what we've seen. All right, next one, going back to you, Pete. And this comes a lot of time with those cheap websites. Sometimes when you get these cheap website designers, they'll only design for desktop, and that is a huge problem. Pete, tell us why.
Yeah, so most clients these days, it varies by client, but most clients these days see over half their traffic is from mobile. So we recommend actually starting with a mobile design and then working up to a desktop. Having single column, a lot of information makes it easy. Also nicer for the developers to develop as well. But overall, yeah, you have to make sure your site is mobile friendly. Test heavily in that. Traffic from Google, or sorry, the index from Google actually indexes your mobile site first and foremost. So just keep that in mind in case search engine optimization is important to you. But definitely design for mobile and work from there. I'll keep that one short and simple.
And I'll just build on that. So make it on mobile, make it on tablet, make it on different screens. Just make sure that it's usable for more than one screen and more than one desktop. Alyssa, the next one, we're kind of veering a little different course here, but I think it's building on, okay, you've done step one, navigation, branding, step two, the minor details, the experience, the call to action, things like that. So now let's go to higher level thinking here. And with that, why is it important to have pictures of you, your team, your office on your website? So we say it's a mistake to not have these personalized photos. Can you tell us why?
So I know that photo shoots can be a little tricky to set up, but they are so worth it because having photos of yourself or your team, it's like there's a person right behind, the expertise and the knowledge. Lawyers can be intimidating, and that seems to be a common impression that a lot of potential clients have, especially depending on what kind of law you do. If you're personal injury, and you're dealing with a different classes of people, lawyers can be really intimidating, and it's so important to have something that looks approachable in those scenarios, or even in other scenarios, it's important to show that you're confident, you're pleasant to work with. A smiling photo can do that. We have seen actual data that shows, conversions are more likely to happen when they see a confident, smiling photo of somebody. It just, whatever it does in the brain, it actually promotes that credibility, that confidence. And I think everyone wants to feel comfortable at the end of the day. So yes, expertise is important, knowledge is important, but also feeling that connection, that comfort level is really important when you're choosing someone to work with, especially when it's for a high stakes matter. And more, I'm seeing a lot of trends with our clients and just in the industry in general, where people want to look even more relatable. They want to make that personal connection. We're not just this person who went to Harvard Law and, had X, Y, and Z accolades and publications and so forth, right? Those all speak highly of you. But when they can actually put a face to all of that and they see a smiling face or a confident face, it just continues to build that confidence and that credibility. So again, I have talked to a lot of our clients. Photo shoots, especially with an entire team, can be challenging to organize and put together, but I assure everybody that it is so worth it. If anything, just getting photos of individual people throughout the site can make a big difference in just, again, building that authenticity and that credibility.
And we talk a lot about in general, not only are you going to have the photographs of you, your team, maybe your office, if you have a particularly notable office location or something like that, but we talk about imagery in general because the power of a photograph is really important. And even at our lowest level of sites, We have something called the impressive photo theme, where your website is built around a certain imagery or image look. And that's part of what we're going to talk about. The next mistake is going generic with your imagery, because when people put up a picture for the sake of a picture, you're once again doing that no impact branding. It's just kind of like, here's a picture of an office. Oh gosh, here's pictures of legal scales. Everyone knows the legal scales, move on. It's time to think about how someone is going to feel, and a photograph will do that. I have so many websites that we've had clients come to us, oh, we really like the elephant website, or oh, we really like the website that had like the twinkling lights, or oh, we really like the website that had the animation. So you can use any kind of imagery, but just pick a good one. Pick something that's not generic, because once again, you shouldn't have a website for the sake of a website. So popping in those generic photos isn't going to do anything. And that's even, like I said, a lot of times, like when people do the skylines and things like that, you can have a skyline as your locale, but don't be too generic about it. Like, tie it into your branding. So, say have the Manhattan skyline, and say you're the heart of New York. Maybe you're a small town in Ohio, have your skyline of that and say connecting to our town. Just whatever imagery you pick, have it have meaning, have it connect to your brand, have it connect to who you are. Sometimes it can be even fun. I've even seen a website where they built a little bit section about the company's dog, so that the law firm dog runs around. But somebody's going to remember that. So that imagery was well picked. It was well thought of. Again, having a photo for the sake of a photo is just never, ever going to work, because it's like, yeah, you have this photo, it breaks up some text, but that's it. Don't do anything that's not going to have its own value to the site itself.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Nancy, with what I would say is thoughtful choices. So I think that goes a long way, again, with the impression that you're going to make on your user and on your potential clients. Is just putting the effort, the connection into what's going on the website, right? If everything is thoughtfully chosen, it just is a reflection of your brand, that everything is well thought through. And that, again, there's that consistency there. And again, having something that's memorable. So I think those are all really important points too.
That could go horribly wrong though. So let's talk about how going too trendy can go horribly wrong with your website.
It's a balancing act with trends. There are some trends that are really great. I've seen actually a movement into more minimalistic design and clean and really purposeful. And I think that's a wonderful trend. And so I'm happy to see that bold typography and big messaging, because I think that actually makes a really purposeful impact. But then there's other trends that we're seeing where maybe it's over animated. If you look at like WebGL and Web3, there's so much movement there that it can actually slow down the load speed on your browser, especially if you're not on the most up-to-date browser. So there's a negative impact if you're going too trendy, especially with animation, because then if the page loads too slow, the user isn't getting the information they need quick enough, then likely to bounce off the page. Then there's just other trends I've seen with typography, and we'll get more into that. But, if a trend is interfering with your ability to actually absorb the information quickly, because ultimately that's the goal, right? You want to make that first impression. It happens within 3 seconds. You want someone to absorb that information quickly. And if they can't do that, if the trend of your website, whether it's, flashing images or crazy animation, or something, again, that's interfering, it's going to have the opposite effect. So I think be choosy with the trends that you embrace, because they should enhance your message. They should enhance the user experience and not detract from it. So I think that is a huge component of considering which trends to incorporate into your website.
What I would also say with that, it kind of ties into what we were talking about with budget, is if you are going to be the trendy firm, maybe you want to be the trendy firm, so everyone's doing drone footage and you're going to be the drone footage firm too, is that you have to have the budget to back it up, because if you have that, that trend may go horribly out of style in 3 to 5 years, So if you're going to do that, just know that your website marketing design budget is going to have to increase in a few years because you may have to be more trendy down the line. That doesn't mean pick a generic website so it lasts forever and ever and ever. But just keep in mind that if you're using the latest and greatest, that it may not be the latest and greatest. So just have some wiggle room to know that maybe in 5 years, no one's going to care about drones anymore. In a few years, maybe no one's going to like really bright colors. So just keep it in mind and have a plan that you're saying, well, I know this is really trendy and I like that, but I'm going to have to go back and update it in a few years. And just know that, and again, I like when clients update their websites every few years. You don't have to reinvent the wheel and redo the whole thing. Maybe you just have to redo your homepage, and that's fine. But just don't focus on being trendy and what your competitors are doing, and that's it, without realizing that in a few years, to keep up, you may need to do something else to stay relevant. And then probably one of the biggest mistakes that we make, and Alyssa, you've already talked about this, but Pete, what happens when a website design ignores speed? Why is ignoring speed one of the biggest website design mistakes you can make?
Yeah, it means you have a slow website and bounce rate will increase. So, and you're possibly, if you care about, again, SEO and search results, you could drop in search rankings too, because Google cares about speed. Overall, when your site is done, you definitely want to optimize for speed. That includes compressing images, compressing your code, running minifying on your CSS and JS files. There's also, if you're using WordPress, a bunch of plugins that'll do this for you automatically. There's a whole laundry list of speed checks you can do, but make it part of your project and make it part of the goal of the website. If you have, 1+ megabyte page loads, your site's gonna be slow. It just is. So get those page loads down as much as possible. What we've seen is the biggest breaking of page loads as a development standpoint is usually images and then JavaScript libraries, including third-party libraries. So if you're loading a lot of Google libraries or Facebook code or things like that onto your site, it's going to slow down the site, including tracking scripts. So if you have to load those things, lazy load them late on the process. That way you release your page content loads first, but definitely focus on speed of the site at some point in the process.
So let's say you're keeping a nice speed page and you're trying to keep everything optimized, so you take away your images. Alyssa, that comes into another mistake of its own when you ignore typography. So what happens? What is typography? What should our listeners consider when they're thinking about this?
Well, one thing I just want to say before we jump into typography, what I'm hearing is this really unified thread of making thoughtful choices, right? It's like, don't go too far on one end of the spectrum, no images versus images, trend versus no trend. I think, and also that really loops in what we were talking about with getting expert guidance when you're making your website, because you do want to talk through and get the right guidance on which choices to make. And again, looking at all of these components in a thoughtful, cohesive way. To touch upon the typography, I think typography is just another aesthetic in a way of your brand, but it also should be readable. So, there's typography that gives you different impressions. There's typography that looks really bold and modern and clean. And if that's who you are as a firm, that's great. Go with clean, sans serif, bold typography that makes a statement. I've seen a lot of trendy typography recently with this more almost like boutique-y serif looking font, and that gives sort of a trend, but more of an elegant edge to it. And so again, if that's reflective of who the firm is, are they more elegant? Are they more traditional? Is it more kind of understated, right? Those are all things to consider when choosing the right typeface. But there's also even the technical component, right? Like, is the typeface loading well on the website? Is it web friendly? You want to make sure that it's viewable properly in all different browsers and all different sizes. That's the very basic aspect of a good or a good font choice, is making sure that it's legible, it's readable. Can you read that font easily at a smaller size? Can you read it easily at a larger size? Are the words coming through properly, or is it taking a while to kind of discern what the font's actually, or what the text is actually saying? So again, I think it's just being thoughtful about the typography choices. And then again, like everything else, typography has styles. So if the style complements and reflects the brand of the firm and the aesthetic of the firm, then you want to, again, include that in your cohesive branding.
And we already talked about this, but for number 15, the last but not least, and I can hear some firms groaning a little bit when they say this, but it's really important. And that is your overall website design. You have your brand, you have your content, you have this, you have that, everything's perfect. Have you considered SEO? And what I say to our clients all the time is maybe you don't want to fully embrace SEO. Okay, that's fine. SEO works, it'll get you rankings. Maybe you don't care. That's fine. But you never want to design a website that completely disregards SEO. So, for example, a lot of times our clients will come to us and just have like 100 words on a page. Google's not going to index it. So you are yourself setting yourself up for failure because you didn't have a page that's Google going to be relevant. So if someone is doing a search for something that's connected to you, you won't show up. Maybe, like, for example, maybe you're a family lawyer and you didn't feel the need to explain that you do alimony claims. Someone may be looking for an alimony lawyer. If they type it in or trying to get some answers about alimony, you actually set yourself back because you missed out on a client. You know, a lot of times people don't realize that there's an SEO component called title tags and meta descriptions. Do you have the proper typing that shows up if someone does the search? So let's say you're a Fort Lauderdale personal injury lawyer. If you don't have that title tag or the meta description, A, you may not rank in general, but B, you're not going to be able to show up if someone does search for you. So there's a lot of SEO work that can happen behind the scenes that's not aggressive. It's not the use of keywords. I mean, yeah, well, I used to be an SEO team member here, so I'm going to tell you SEO is great and it works. But even if you don't want to do it, there are certain parameters for Google and search that just simply need to be there because otherwise you're actually harming yourself. And a lot of the things we talked about already do that. Having a call to action, don't have a slow site, have the proper tagging, have a good navigation. But even something as simple with SEO is, do you have things in the proper structure? For example, if you have a car accident page, do you have a supporting rideshare accident page and things like that? It does all tie together, and you should consider SEO. If you're looking to get more clients, absolutely embrace it, embrace the keywords, embrace the blogging and all of that. But just don't do anything that's actually detrimental to SEO because then the firms that do consider SEO, they're going to show up above you. So you will lose out on clients because they took the time to add in those extra SEO steps. It's just so important, and it is really built into the design of your site. And again, this is like I said, if you go cheap, your website designer may not talk about that to you. A good team will say, are you going to consider SEO? Should you consider it with your content? What can you do? Like, for example, with all of our PaperStreet websites, we include Yoast SEO, so you can consider SEO. Maybe you don't want to, but you have the choice to do so in the future, should you want to go that route. So like I said, kind of just having that as the be all and end all tie-in is a great function, is a great opportunity and a great choice that you could be making. Pete, Alyssa, any last thoughts on that?
You summed it up perfectly. SEO should be important. It should be part of the design, and it should be part of their best practices.
And like I said, our last episode was top 10 technical mistakes. So hopefully you can listen to these two shows and really have an idea of how your website should work. And yes, we talked a lot about law firms, and we hope that you're a lawyer listening to us. But we do have other clients, and a lot of these things are still going to apply to other things. It could apply to a professional such as an accountant or a dentist or a doctor or something like that. So share it with your friends. But like I said, listen to both of our episodes and really take into consideration if your website is serving the purposes that it needs to. Is it sound? Is it technically applicable? Does it do what it needs to do? And does it look great? And as we say at PaperStreet, will it impress and get you results? All right. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Pete. This was a great show. We look forward to speaking with you next time. Bye-bye, all.